Thank you all for joining and welcome to today's session. We will be kind of continuing the super pollutants discussion that's been happening within this path before lunch and then a little bit yesterday as well, but with a specific landfill focus. So my name's Rachel Mooney. I'm a manager for protocol development with the Climate Action Reserve, and I'm the sector lead for our waste handling and methane destruction related protocols. So this is a particular interest for me personally, as well as at the Climate Action Reserve. Landfill was our second ever protocol, just a few months following the adoption of our livestock protocol in 2007. So these landfill projects, they emit methane and CO2, and they're a major source of greenhouse gas emissions, but yet they're often not regulated. So the carbon market has really stepped in over the past decade or so to incentivize the installation of landfill gas control and collection systems, and they will destroy methane and CO2 that will emit from the decomposing of waste as they sit in our landfills. So I'm excited to be moderating this panel with these great experts here with varying expertise within the industry. I will let them introduce themselves, and then we'll follow with a discussion as well as end the session with a 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A from you all. So Felix, would you like to start?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm very excited to be here, so thank you for the opportunity. My name is Felix Fallasch. I'm a senior researcher with Oeko-Institute, which is a German non-profit transdisciplinary research organization. And we are doing a lot of research on the integrity side of carbon markets, including voluntary carbon markets, but also the EU CSDF, the carbon certification framework for removals, as well as Article 6. And our main research focus is on carbon accounting, but also governance and effectiveness of carbon markets. And yeah, today I'm sharing here insights that we have gathered from the multi-year projects that we have been working on together with Environmental Defense Fund since 2021, the Carbon Credit Quality Initiative, CCQI. And yeah, very much looking forward to the discussion.
Good afternoon, I'm Tina Sentner. I'm with SCS Global Services. I'm a lead verifier for SCS. I've been working with SCS for about almost 20 years, we were talking about the other day. It seems amazing, but started with CAR when CAR was CCAR, and work in the voluntary as well as the regulatory side of project verification. Landfills have been a big part of that, especially in the beginning of our tenure. Like you said, it was one of your first protocols, and so my colleague here was one of our first landfills. So it's been a fun ride, and I'm excited to talk about this subject with all of you. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is John McDougal. I'm our portfolio manager for Anew Climate. Anew Climate's a large developer of carbon offsets in North America. Landfills being one of the big kind of project types that we've developed over the last 20 years. Currently we have about 25 projects that we currently manage across the US and Canada from a carbon credit perspective. And I've been in the carbon markets for the last 16 years. I cut my teeth on landfill. So as Tina mentioned, I've done a lot of verifications. I think I've done over 70 landfill verifications as the project proponent. And have been on more landfills than I'd like to admit across the U.S. But there are, it's a project type that, we've talked about super pollutants being the new craze these days. And it's been around for a while, and it's been really a backbone to carbon markets. And it's a reason I believe that it's great that it's getting spotlighted now. But it's like I said, it's been a pillar for the market and for our portfolio and for our buyers, and excited to convey the project type a little bit more on this session. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. This is Guadalupe Avendaño. I am very happy to be here sharing the panel with the experts. I've been in the carbon markets for 20 years now. I am an active GHG lead auditor for the VCS, CAR, called the standard, in former CDM. Nowadays, I also participate as a verifier there in Mexico in the registry and the emission trading system. I am right now the project director of Metanocero. Metanocero is a company we install and capture and destroying systems for the landfill gas from the landfills, of course. And a very, very important project that we have in the north part of Mexico is Ciudad Juarez landfill gas project, which has been emitting carbon credits since 2007. And we have emitted 1.5 million carbon credits now, which are tier 1, they are ranked tier 1 by Calix Global. We also generate electricity from the landfill gas, and recently we are issuing IREX from the supply energy.
Great, thank you all. I want to start this conversation from you, John, talking about, as a project developer, why landfill? How is it strategically important to your organization, or even within the broader market within the U.S.?
Yeah, so for us specifically, one component of it is that we're another part of our business. We're part of the big developer in renewable natural gas as well, which is a kind of a great complement to our carbon portfolio. But from a carbon perspective, a lot of this was covered in the super pollutant session. But what's great about landfill, alongside a lot of other types of super pollutant project types, is that it's very highly measurable. It's permanent. There is instrumentation that's been around for a while, like flow meters, gas analyzers, that can, you can understand by real time, minute by minute, what's actually being destroyed at the combustion device, whether that's a flare or a genset or some medium BTU project. So we really were drawn to that. That was something that we felt was scalable and repeatable, and we've been doing this for the last 16 years and supporting the large landfill companies, but then also the small municipalities as well. And it fits well in that it can be an easier source, I think, from a measurability MRV standpoint to destroy, but very important. And it's also relative to some other project types like removals is cost effective, which we felt fit well with the whole lineage of the process into the buyers, and being able to complement that with their direct reductions.
And Guadalupe, I want to pose the same question to you. Would you like to build off of what John said?
Yes, while others or many see waste, we see value. We see the opportunity to produce clean energy. We see the opportunity to make the waste a valuable product, and we also see a real way to impact to the climate. I will talk a little bit about Mexico. Some statistics. There in Mexico, we produce 120,000 tons per day of waste. So from that waste is disposed in about 2,000 disposal sites, from which only a fraction of them are considered to be sanitary controlled. And from them, just about 30 or maybe few include a capture and destroying system for the methane. So we believe there's still a significant amount of methane being released to the atmosphere, and that's the value that we see.
Within the value, you talked about electricity and clean energy, and John said something similar. So while these protocols are often designed to be focused for a specific project type, they do often give rise to other type of benefits and positive impacts, and builds into some of the larger conversations happening within the carbon market over the past couple years of the co-benefits, whether it's social, environmental, or economic. So what are you two seeing for projects?
Yeah, so I think there was the last session. It's been said before that landfills they don't have the sexy appeal of co-benefits like nature-based. But I would argue that I think landfills are you can create a lot of impact there, not only from the reductions themselves, but if you talk to communities, if you talk to the people that are employed there, from the gas technician to the landfill manager, to anyone who's volunteering there as well. You get a lot of students that come on site too as well and learn from the process of sustainable design. Odor control, migration of methane underground into water sources, all of those are co-benefits that I think you see, and it's pretty, again, you see multiple landfills across what we do, and you see that repeated time and time again. If you put your foot forward and you take a step into something that's maybe others aren't doing, the benefits that you receive beyond just the reductions, from education to social benefits to even additional environmental benefits, if it's renewable energy that's providing power to the grid, the circularity of that is amazing, and there's so much more room to do more, as you mentioned, and so yeah, it's beyond the reductions, and I'll lastly say I believe we do a lot of forestry projects too, but I still stand up behind a landfill being a pretty picture to stand next to if you want to put it on your marketing agreement. So throw that out there.
Yeah. Me? And regarding co-benefits, I agree with John. There are a lot of co-benefits that we can take advantage of. I would like to talk about three main benefits co-benefits that we have there in Ciudad Juárez. The first of all is we provide 45% of the demand for the public lighting in Ciudad Juárez. So that's a lot, 45%. And we also provide the 20% of public lighting in Chihuahua, which is the main city of the state. We also have visitors in the landfill. We kept about 500 visitors per year. From students of all the ages, from kindergarten, elementary, secondary, high schools, also universities. They are looking always information in our landfill, and they are always keen on knowing what are you doing with our waste. So yeah, we like very much that kind of visitors, and we also receive visitors from the municipalities, the mayors of the municipalities in the nearby, and also council members of the municipalities. That's the second one. The third one that I want to mention, and it's very important for us, is that we have placed a fire station inside. So this means that our personnel is trained, is certified, and they are provided with all the equipment that it's necessary to fight sudden fires that would be there in the landfill. So as you know, in landfill there's a high probability of fires. So that's what we have made in this to help, not just to capture and destroy the methane, but also we have all these benefits.
Would either of you like to add?
Yeah, I'm also happy to add. So under the CCQI, we also analyze for every project type the interaction between the activities of the project type and the SDGs, and we also have evaluated that for landfill gas utilization projects, and why this is not based on the evidence that you provided, but it's like a comparison of the literature. We also found that there's a high interaction in landfill gas utilization projects with SDGs, which includes using a resource that would have been otherwise wasted to produce electricity, to build sustainable industrialization and also resilient infrastructure, and of course also the benefits you mentioned on air, soil, and water pollution that can be reduced by landfill gas utilization project compared to a baseline where you have an uncovered landfill. And also positive impacts on environmental health in cities, and also health hazards and other impacts on the population in cities. So in CCQI, we always do, for every project type, we try to score from 1 to 5 how project types contribute to SDGs, and landfill gas utilization projects receive a very high range of scores, which is among the higher ones of the project types that we have analyzed. So overall, we have analyzed 16 project types so far, and landfill gas is all performing quite well on the SDG benefits and the interactions of these projects.
Thank you. Yeah,
I'll just add that I've been going to a lot of landfills, like my colleague here, and I get asked a lot by my family and friends, like, God, you got to go to a landfill. And I say, you have no idea what's going on at your landfill. Your local landfill is so innovative now. I remember going to a landfill and all it was flaring, right, in the beginning. But today you can go to a landfill and you'll see, landfill gas to energy projects, engines back to the grid with electricity back to the grid. But not only those types of projects or heat going back to, heat another industry. You get a lot, you can see that as well. But also, it seems to inspire landfills, once they see the success in these programs, to start to do other things, like composting. That became another co-benefit. Also, I've seen other landfills take on wind energy, building windmills and implementing all sorts of recycling programs on their site. So it's been actually exciting to see. And if you haven't been to your local landfill, I would definitely recommend it, because there are some innovative things going on there that are co-benefits to these activities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to, Tina, your experience being on site on these landfills and being a verifier, you really get into all the details for so many different projects all over the U.S. and different project developers. What do you see when you review these projects in terms of how they provide, or I guess reinforce the concept of these projects being of high integrity?
Yeah. I think landfills, from the beginning, it's been a process for them, but they are high integrity, high quality projects, mostly because the measurability of these projects, like John mentioned earlier, you have a system in place where you're collecting landfill gas, you're monitoring it through these extensive systems on a minute, 2 minutes, or even second database, and collecting this information as well as the methane content, and then you're recording the destruction of it right there, instantaneously. So it's great in the sense that it's the permanence there, the risk for permanence is low because it's being destroyed immediately, and the measurability of the project brings high quality. Now, as from a verifier's perspective, that's golden, because there's not a lot of guessing going on here. We have what we call objective data that we get to review, and then we get to analyze. Now, it's a lot of data a lot of times, and so we have to, it can be tedious to verify these projects, but they are high quality and the data is usually pretty solid, and so that's useful for us. Yeah, I think there's a lot of transparency as well because of these systems in place. And not only that, there's a lot of monitoring that goes on in these landfills that are part of these protocols or these methodologies. And so there's a huge investment that goes into that on the landfill side, not only just in the instrumentation, it's state-of-the-art, also it comes with training your folks to be able to, track this stuff, and then calibrate these instruments and those things on a regular basis. So I think the quality is really there for these. There's not a lot of black box going on in a landfill project. It's very transparent, and as I mentioned, a lot of these also, these core carbon principle are labeled core carbon principle, these methodologies. So it's one of the first ones, as you probably heard, in the super pollutant group. So it wasn't a sexy project back in the day, but now it's coming back and it's showing its resilience of what it can do and how it can, work towards this goal under the voluntary carbon market.
I think it's worth mentioning, I mean, I've said it a couple times now, Landfills was the first project to be ICP-CMCC approved and also the first PACM protocol. So that in itself, if you can see that if from multiple different stakeholders sees this project as a win and high quality. So I just wanted to throw that stat out there too. PACM and ICP-CM of the first protocols out of the gate approved that.
And Felix, you at your organization, working with the CCQI, you're reviewing these methodologies in depth. What are you seeing when you're looking into the details of how methodologies are designed to set up these projects for success?
Yeah, at CCQI we have assessed the most relevant quantification methodologies in the landfill gas utilization sector. This includes the Climate Action Reserve methodology, the ACR methodology, and the two CDM methodologies that are available for crediting under VCS and Gold Standard. And to answer the question how well they perform, I just want to give a little bit of context. What we do under the CCQI to assess these methodologies. So we have developed our own assessment methodology that screens different project types against 7 quality objectives, which includes additionality, non-permanence, double counting, and also, of course, the quantification approaches. And applying the methodology produces a score of 1 to 5 for each of these quality objectives and the sub-criterions that we have developed to assess them. And we have applied this methodology to a broader category or types of carbon credits based on their underlying characteristics. So we have, for example, chosen landfill gas, unregistered under the Climate Action Reserve, and then the U.S. landfill protocol as the methodology to build our assessment. And the methodology we use is publicly available, so stakeholder can also use them. Can use it to derive their own scores, and not only those that we have produced as the CCQI team. And also what I want to mention is we have started this work already in 2020, developing the methodology, so the ICVCM was not there yet at that moment. And just to mention that this work under the CCQI should not contradict the ICVCM, so we all agree that these methodologies have been CCP approved, and that speaks to the quality they have. But the idea of the CCQI is to complement these scores because the ICVCM sets a global threshold for quality. And the way we look at the methodologies tries to provide a more nuanced picture. So you can look at the strengths and maybe also some of the weaknesses that they are still there that could be improved further. And so that's the objective. I think it's important to mention that we are not meaning to contradict the ICVCM CCP approval or the label. So we have applied that to 16 different project types, as I mentioned. And we look in each methodology, in our view, how conservative the estimates of emission reductions or removals will be. And we do that by looking into the most important elements of the methodology to see if they more likely lead to underestimation or overestimation of emission reductions. And I think this is done very similar as the ICVCM does. So we also look at uncertainty associated with the quantification. And after we have done this for all elements, we examine whether taken together these approaches overall lead to either likely to underestimation or overestimation. And then now to the question where landfill gas methodologies stand. So we have assessed more than 30 different quantification methodologies to date. And the landfill gas utilization methodologies, in our view, perform comparably well against our assessment criteria. That's not only the more obvious advantages that you already mentioned. So there is like no non-permanence risk, there are low leakage risks, there are low risks for overlapping claims, but also in our view, especially the climate action reserve and SER methodologies, they deploy elements that more often lead to underestimation of emission reductions than overestimation, which in our view is a key criterion for conservativeness. However, we identified also some overestimation risks that still exist with these methodologies that in our view are related to the use of the default values for oxidation factors or the effectiveness of some of the applicability conditions that should prevent making changes in design of the landfill to increase methane production in the project scenario. So, and I would be interested also to learn from you what you think about the risks and how the methodologies address this. And we also found that there could be a little bit more improvement in how systematically uncertainties are addressed in the methodologies. Yes, and I think, so overall, while we think they are quite strong, especially also comparable to other project types, there are still some elements that could be improved, and we are having a workshop here tomorrow also where we provide in more detail our rationale why we think these areas could still be improved, and also provide some practical recommendations how this could be done. So, but overall, yes, as I mentioned, the methodologies perform comparably well in our assessment framework.
Yeah, and while we've spent this first part of the conversation talking about the tremendous benefits that these projects have, no project comes without its challenges, especially when it comes to scaling in the carbon market. So Guadalupe, I was hoping you could provide us with some context about what are some challenges that you see within landfill projects specifically in Mexico, and as it pertains to maybe like the development side, as well as maybe any changes to how you can, or challenges within scaling the landfill projects in Mexico, and maybe if you could touch on what are while there may be challenges, some possible solutions maybe you see in the short term.
Yes. Well, talking about challenges, of course, they are a lot. I will just mention a few. First of all, maybe the climate conditions, because if, for example, there's a lot of humidity, you cannot extract the biogas, and if there is no humidity, there is no biogas production. So climate conditions are important. So we also face biogas forecast models, which add some uncertainty to our calculations. And of course, this has to be very precise, because the investment needs to be accordingly to the biogas calculation. So we also face technical challenges during the construction, for example, and also during the operation of the sites. Every site has its very particular characteristics. Talking about also the political processes with municipalities, that's also complex, because the legislation that you have to fulfill, the requisites that every municipality has. And what's also important is that there in Mexico, the mayor, it's only for 4 years. So maybe you made all the process to get into the landfill, and suddenly he's gone, and you have to begin again with a new one. So that's also a very complex part of working with landfills. Of course, there's the part of how costly and demanding the registration, issuance, and commercialization of the carbon credits is. So that's also a very important part, because it's always a whole process to register a project, first of all. Then to have, as Tina mentioned, all the equipment calibrated, working, and everything. That's a significant cost, but it's also you have to know a lot, the methodologies or the protocols, you have to follow them very, very strictly. And we also have changes in the legislation. For example, in Mexico, there were some changes in the renewable energy legislations, which bring us some problems. Yeah. So I believe that we already proved that it works because we are making it. We have these 3 important sub-products that I mentioned, but I think the major challenge is to scale the solution to other landfills.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add to that. I mean, all of that is absolutely true. The technical side of things can be challenging, but I think one of the things that is very important to mention, and you could say this about a lot of projects, but if you want to scale these projects, the first thing you need, these are voluntary projects, its CapEx is very high, OpEx is very high, a price signal for carbon at a higher price point, and liquidity in this market would massively scale this. An example of that is if you look back in the history of the U.S., Waxman and Markey was a bill that was passed under the Obama administration for cap and trade in the U.S. It failed in the Senate, but the signal of that coming in included landfills. And so you saw at least, I would say, 50 landfills install voluntary gas systems in there with a price signal well above $10 a ton. And I love telling that story because for those that say that landfills in any other project that's not additional, you can go back and you can overlay a price signal of what that looked like and how many shovels went in the ground, how many extraction wells went into the ground with that price signal to allow for these projects to go forward. And as was just said, there's uncertainty of planning out what the gas collection will be, doing the demonstration of or estimating the volume yield that correlates to the amount of credits that you get can be challenging before you actually put a system in place. But if you have enough of a price signal to do that, to give you some buffer room, you will see more systems go in place, not only in the U.S. included. So in the U.S., there's about 15% of non-regulated landfills, so landfills that aren't required to put a GCCS, are ones that have voluntary systems in place. So there's a lot of improvement that could be even done in developed countries, U.S. and Canada there, if there was a price signal, even more so internationally, right? And I will say this, for our company, we were very close to putting in probably 6 to 7 more systems across the U.S. in 21 and 22 before the market started to turn down on price, right? And so I'll quite simply say, if you have a price signal in our markets, you will see shovels go in the ground and you'll overcome challenges. So.
Yeah, and you both had kind of talked about, regulations and how that can impact the carbon market, and when the government tends to not step in for regulation, markets step in to play their role in advancing climate science. And more recently, we have seen a transition in some of the conversations where historically a lot of the carbon market has been discussing about removals, and now we're getting some of this renewed interest for landfills, or I guess methane and other type of super pollutants. We're almost getting this rebrand, right? I'm curious to your all perspective on why now. We have the super pollutant initiative or action initiative put together by Salesforce and Google and all these large corporations putting $100 million into attacking these super pollutants. So yeah, why now? What is maybe signaling the shift from what you all are seeing within your respective role within the market? And where do you see this going in the future in terms of future impact and how landfills can play a role in this rebrand?
So I'll start off. So I think the amount of the global warming potential of super pollutants, including methane, is massive, right? So it's a low-hanging fruit to tackle decarbonization. So that's the first thing. Second thing I think you had, I think it was mentioned in the last session too, which is a great point. I think Jody mentioned this, was that there was this removal avoidance kind of mechanism that surfaced over the last 6-7 years. And to move toward removals, it was an overcorrection. And what you saw too, I think, which has been driving this last kind of our spotlight on superpollutants, is that a lot of natural gas is going to need to be used in things like data centers and for our power security going forward. And so how could you justify using gas and methane as a power source and be a sustainable company without addressing superpollutants as an issue, right? And so I think there was a little bit of self-reflection among buyers of seeing that and going after it. So,
yeah, maybe to add, also as a researcher, and we are out there with all the assessments of the methodologies, we have companies or buyers coming to us and asking, so what should we do and what should we buy? So we always turn them down because it's not our role as a researcher to advise on that. So we refer them to the rating agencies or other actors. But what I always get from these initial conversations is that buyers are unsure what to buy because with all the things that happened in the market before, and they are not sure what claims they can make with different certificates. And so I think they are also coming now more probably to project types that are more easy to measure. And so landfill gas is also coming up as one of the project types that they are asking about. So that echoes maybe what you have been saying a little bit.
I just wanted to add that I think, there was a little bit of a focus on, well, there has been in the past about forestry and, additionality and concerns about that, and some criticisms and that were going around. And I think maybe this is why this is also some of these that are coming back, because additionality, while it's not straightforward, because regulatory plays a big role in the additionality of a landfill gas project. Once it's set, and if you're monitoring it, it's a little bit more transparent, I think, and so it becomes, in my mind, it can become a little bit less risky for some buyers and some of the folks, and maybe it's something that scales your portfolio. I'm not sure, but. Looking at the presentation this morning with the Tale of Two Markets and seeing that actually landfill gas is bumping back up with the help of CCP label, maybe that's something that's worth looking at now because the price point is edging back up. So
we could use a little bit more on that side, but
yeah.
But no, I do want to just say really quickly, if you don't mind, on the additionality side, I think there's some discussions around that sometimes with, I think measurability and permanence is pretty simple in landfills. Additionality, like any project type, is you have to demonstrate it through regulatory surplus, but also things like financial additionality, common practice, and things like that. I want to remind people that the amount of work in CapEx and OpEx that goes into a landfill system is no small feat. Okay, to go through that and to make that commitment voluntarily and all the risks associated with it should not be overlooked. Okay, there's a lot of things that can go wrong with the process. If you're down for a while, you lose volume, and then you're still having expenses as you go forward. Also, too, when you're putting a system in place, you're kind of pot committed at that point. Right, you've put your wells in, you've put your flare pad in or your genset in, you spent all that money, you still have an ongoing OpEx expense, but you've put in a lot of money in investment with the hope that you're going to see a return in investment, okay? And that hasn't always worked out for landfills. And so I just want to highlight that about additionality, that I welcome anyone who is skeptical about that to really look underneath the hood.
Yes. I just want to mention that regarding the standard evolve, in our experience, we see that the climate action reserve, the protocol specifically for Mexico, that makes a lot more friendly to be used because it's a regional protocol that takes into account the national legislation, the common practice of the country. So this results in a pretty much accurate calculation applicability for us.
To just tie back into this theme of the path is opportunities. So I wanted to pose this question to you all. Maybe we can start with you, Guadalupe, and just go our way down of what do you see as promising opportunities moving forward for landfills within the within maybe your organization, or what you see broader in terms of maybe technology or policy potential or the financial aspect, and then how can other areas of the market support these types of promising opportunities and expand the impact that these landfill projects have?
Sure, go ahead. Why don't you go
Sorry,
first?
no, it's just
Yeah.
I believe I already take the question. So talking about this climate action reserve protocol specifically for Mexico, that's what I want to take.
Yeah, no, I think first and foremost, I think there's still a lot of untapped landfills, right? And so when we talk about technology, this is a proven technology. It works. It exists. And I think I heard you this in Super. I 100% agree. Like, let's go after the low-hanging fruit. Let's use our existing technology, and let's mitigate as fast as we possibly can, right? And we talked about what would it take to do that. Two, I think beyond that, I think there is some incremental cool technology that's happening, that you can do at a smaller scale too as well, from, capturing incremental methane even from compliance projects that it shows that you're going above and beyond which is required. I think there are ways to better measure methane and then figure out ways to capture that as well. And so there's some cool technologies, and there's some groups here that are at this conference that are showcasing that you could do, again, continuing to push down the curve for methane in that way. And again, I think that the finance side, again, show us a price signal, right? And we'll go out and build it. So.
As far as scaling landfill projects, I mean, I can only speak from the verification side. Having consistent and rigorous data management implemented into your projects from the get-go, so it's not a surprise at the protocols or the methodologies. I mean, it'd really be nice to have a standardized methodology. I think that would help if, because we have a plethora of methodologies just for landfills, but definitely data management and consistency, and then QA/QC, up front. I mean, this takes some effort from the project developer side, but it could actually make it a lot smoother for your projects on the verification or the validation side. So, and that's something we see time and time and again. Now, for a seasoned project developer, they've already been through the growing pains of that, but new project developers, sometimes they're not really well aware of what goes into the monitoring and verification and reporting aspect of a project. So.
Yeah, I think in terms of scaling landfill gas project, it would be a good way to further build the integrity case. I think projects already do that, and I think that would be key to even further scale these projects. As I mentioned, under the CCQI, we assign scores from 1 to 5 to methodologies. From the 30 methodologies we have looked into, none of these methodologies has received a score of 5 yet. Only one has received a score of 4, and very few a score of 3. So yeah, we are very strict, I guess, as well. But both the ACR and the Climate Action Reserve methodology received a score of 3 under our assessment framework, which again shows, I think, that they perform comparably well. I think at CCQI we really would love to see a methodology to receive a score of 5, and in our view, landfill gas utilization methodologies are really well positioned to be that first methodology to do that. And yeah, I would encourage standards as they periodically update methodologies to maybe also look at what elements could be further strengthened, and then I think the project type is really well positioned to build on this integrity case, and hopefully that also can lead to scale.
Great. Thank you all for sharing your expertise. I want to take a minute to allow for questions from the audience. I'd like to raise your hand for a question. Don't be shy. Yes.
John, I was really excited with being a landfill guy myself. I'm really excited to hear that landfill indeed is unisex. So I want to share a quick story. There's a big company in Mexico, waste management company, which do collection, landfill, everything, the whole thing. And they are using a very interesting strategy, like filming kind of TikTok, kind of videos. And you know that this is being successful when, like in the family WhatsApp group, your aunts are sharing the videos. So what they're doing is like the same employees are filming themselves, like the garbage man, the driver, and so. But the interesting part is that they are socializing what is happening on the ground, like how the collection works, how the landfill works. And I think that it's a very interesting outreach, like the awareness that they're raising in the population. And I know that now super pollutants are like in the mind of like the experts, that the people in the field. But what about the general population? Right? In your experience, maybe John or whoever wants to answer, is that something happening right now in the US, or is something that can help, like to move the awareness far away from the experts, but into the population, and then to decision makers, and make like the wave moving, right? To make it even more sexier.
Yeah, I appreciate that question. So I think it's, if the question, if I'm hearing correctly, right, is that the way I put that is you have this first generation buyers that exist in our small market relative to climate, right? For this market to unlock, including landfill projects, you need the second, third generation buyers to enter into this market. And with that, I think, media and getting the populations aware and young people aware of like what are the benefits of doing this, and using social media like that, I think is incredible. One thing I'll also mention too, and I was talking to Denise Farrow about this earlier, was one thing that we don't have in this market is it's very much wholesale, direct. But what if we created such a buzz around it and that it became almost retail, like any other commodity that we use, right? And you got excited about, landfills or whatever project type that's your thing, and you use that to mitigate your own individual footprint, right? And you created that, and you had the visibility of using social media to know that there's being real impact. You're actually seeing. I think that's a problem with our market too, as well, is that you're not seeing the real time. You're not seeing the pictures. You're not seeing the buzz that gets people excited. So I'm all for that, right? Anything that puts a spotlight on this, that I think you've had some criticisms on our market. But there's so many people that have put so much hard work that's in this room that I'm looking at right now of creating these projects and the integrity that exists, that so much just doesn't get spotlighted, and the impact. And if you can use TikTok or the Gram or all the other things that you can use to highlight that, I'm all for it. And I'll be the first one, sharing it with friends. So,
Can we expect you doing a TikTok dance sometime soon?
I think that's a great idea. As a verifier, getting to see all these, these landfills and what's happening out there, it's like you want to share that, and you want to show everybody. And it's not. We've come a long way from a dump, right? That's what people associated with the landfill, and now it's a landfill. It's an operating. It's part of your community, and it's. I belonged to an industry before, and we were remiss in touting all the great things that we did in the community, and if we're not careful, that might happen here as well. And young people and people on social media, they're going to put the pressure on companies, right? And guess who's listening? Those investors. So I think it's a great idea.
Yep.
Yep.
I think there's a question in the back.
Yep.
Yeah.
Please.
I've talked a lot. I definitely want to comment on that, but I'll defer. Maybe if someone else wants to comment first, but happy to do that. Do you have anything you want to add?
No, I just can add that we had evaluated the scientific literature and not only looked at what the UNFCCC has been doing under the Paris Agreement crediting mechanism, but under the different studies that have estimated oxidation factor rates for different landfills. And in the estimates that we have seen in the literature, it looks like that the 0.1 oxidation factor that is used by default now might not be conservative as an aggregate value if you apply it to individual landfills in all cases. So I would be interested to learn more about what the scientist has said to you. That would be really interesting for us to know. But in our assessment of the literature was that this value, which we understand comes from the IPCC, because they have it in the guidelines for national inventories, the 0.1 value, but this might be not applicable for carbon crediting, which is more looking at to conservativeness than accuracy. So that's something that we were concerned about when we were speaking about the oxidation factor in the landfills. And it seems to us that it might be useful to have a more conservative value in there, but I would be really interested to exchange after the panel with you.
Yeah, one, it's a great question, so thank you for it. So one, I would say so for everyone to know, oxidation factor, right, is the idea of that soil, the microbes in the soil are oxidizing methane in a baseline scenario that would otherwise not go to atmosphere, right? And so are you using a conservative oxidation factor in this, which has universally been used at 10% as IPCC has been stated. So recent literature has said that potentially it could be much higher, and it really is relative to a number of factors. It can be relative to a liner in a landfill. It can be in addition to atmospheric conditions like temperature, moisture, and things like that. It's very difficult to test, okay? But I think it was mentioned in the question, and I think this is absolutely true, that some of the testing that was done for soil oxidation on some of these that are higher included systems that were already in place. So you're already applying an oxygen vacuum to a waste mass that's not representative of the baseline scenario, right? So you're getting typically a lower flux in that case, which it just essentially would be creating a higher oxidation factor. So this is new. This is a new discussion, but I do think there needs to be more discussion around this. The last thing I will say about it is it's also very locationally specific. So where you're going to have something, and I mentioned temperature and I mentioned conditions of a liner, you're going to have different liners in the U.S. versus you're going to have in developing countries. You're going to have different temperatures and things like that that are going to address that. And so I think what you'll start to see is potentially ways to have default factors that are jurisdictional. I think you also need to correct the fact that some of this literature, again, like you said, is using systems or using analysis of existing gas collection systems, and not just a baseline scenario of no system in place, which is a problem. And then two, I think you may start seeing potentially groups that are able to use some testing that will be interesting to see as well. I'll leave it at that. I mean, I think it is kind of the hot topic, some of the higher default factors, again, I would say apply to very specific situations. And so, yeah.
I can also add that at the Reserve, we are launching a work group to tackle this discussion and update our protocols as necessary. So we do have those forms available on our website under the U.S. Landfill and Protocol Development section tab. So there's an opportunity to participate as a work group member, to actively participate in the discussion and provide feedback on how we consider this under our protocols. And like we've discussed earlier, our protocols are jurisdiction specific, so we'll be able to tackle some of the complexities that you had said within the specific experts from the jurisdictions. And then we also have an opportunity to participate as an observer, so we have a stakeholder engagement form, so you can complete that as well to receive updates and participate in the work group meetings as observers, or also be able to provide public comment when any updates are addressed in our protocol. We have time for probably about one more question.
I have a question. How many people have visited a landfill?
Good.
Oh,
Love it.
Okay. A lot more expected.
Wow.
That's
We'll
great.
post it on TikTok next time. Okay.
Yes. Well, I guess as a way to wrap up, well, first I want to thank you all for your expertise. It's been great to hear all the varying different perspectives, from the project developer, the verifier, and then more from the methodology analysis side. So it's been very great to hear that, and thank you all for your thoughtful questions. And I think we'll just go. Any final thoughts that you guys would like to share for the group?
Oh, well, no, just what I already said, that is, we have proof that it can work, but we have to tackle those challenges that we mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say we almost, I don't know anyone that has zero waste in their life. Everyone has some connection to a landfill. And so beyond just the environmental side, right, taking responsibility for that, visiting your landfill, supporting these new innovative, investments, taking risks and things like that. Remember, we're connected to this. This is a part of our ecosystem and our social life. And so would love to for more people to pay attention to that. So, yeah.
I'd just like to say it's exciting to be a part of this group. Methane has always been, it's a great sector to be a part of. And it's been exciting to watch over the years. And as a verifier, we're excited to have more projects come our way. And we're ready for you. So anytime. So thank you.
No, I think it's also exciting that integrity plays such a big role now in markets. I think from our view, that's really encouraging, and I think landfill gas, as I mentioned, can play an important role here also for the market as a whole. And I think also about the last comment about the oxidation factor also shows that methodologies always profit also from scientific debate and bringing together scientific findings with the findings from the ground and find a way to make this robust even more over time. And I think, that's a really great case for that.
Great. Well, thank you all. We'll end it there.